Well, hello, everybody, the amazing youth of the Western Springs 4th Ward. I thought that it might be kind of fun to do a quick little video since we can't meet together, and it's been a long time since we've connected, and it might still be sometime before we can again. And so I just wanted to let you know that I'm still here for you as your bishop. If you ever need to talk, we could do it over a video conference call or just over the phone. But I miss you, I love you, and really, really look forward to the time when we can get back together again. But just a brief message here, and I thought that maybe I'd start out with a little joke. I'm going to try. I'm not that great of a joke teller, but here we go. So it's sacrament meeting, and there's this mom, and she can't find her son anywhere. And so she looks all over the church, and finally she finds him sitting in the foyer with his head in his hands. And she says, "Son, we've got to go in now. Sacrament meeting is about to start." And he says, "Oh, I can't go back in there. I can't go in there. Nobody will talk to me, and nobody likes me." And she says, "Son, you have to go back in. You're the bishop." And anyway, I had to put the laughter in there because that's probably the only laughter I'm getting from that one. But there's my joke. But anyway, I thought I'd start with a little story. It's a story from our family that my dad used to tell. And my dad used to tell stories about when he worked on a ranch when he was a teenager. And so in our home, they're called the ranch stories. And I think some of you have heard these before. But each one of the stories has a little moral to the story. And I have a special gift that my dad gave me one year for my birthday. And I know it's kind of a strange gift for a bishop to have, but this is one of the most valuable things I own. This is an old whiskey bottle, like from the Old West. And you can see that it's turned purple because it's been sitting in the sun for years and years and years. And my dad found this while he was out riding his horse when he was a teenager on the ranch. And he'd saved this for years and years, and I think when I turned 16, he gave it to me, and it has Dad's Ranch Reminders around the top there. And then on each one of these little scrolls is a saying. And these are all morals of the story, the stories that he used to tell. And on one of those scrolls, it says, "Don't lick grass." And that is some Wilcox family wisdom that I would like to pass on to you. Don't lick grass. Now, what on earth does that mean? I know that sounds like some strange advice, but there's a story that goes with it. Now, one of the jobs that my dad hated the most when he worked on the ranch was fixing fence. And what they had to do is they'd have to go all along the fence lines to try and fix the places where larger holes had started to be formed. And they had to stretch the wires back into place. And the reason they had to do that is because of a strange habit the cows had. You see, the cows always felt that the best grass was on the other side of the fence. Now, they could have an entire pasture full of just perfectly good grass. But these cows, they would go right up to the edge of the fence and then push their heads through the wires and eat the grass just on the other side of the fence. But eventually that would be all eaten. And so they would push further, and they'd push their bodies up against the wire and reach further and further until finally the only grass that they could get is they would take their long tongues and try to reach out and lick the grass into their mouth. And my dad, he would always tell us that. He would say, "Don't be like those cows. Don't lick grass." And you see, the fence is a lot like our commandments and our standards and our rules that we have in the church. Our Heavenly Father has given these things to us to protect us from the bad things, from the consequences that lay on the other side of the fence. But sometimes we look at that fence as a barrier to what we want to enjoy. And it looks like the greener grass is on the other side. But we want to be good kids, right? So maybe we don't completely jump the fence, but do we push against the rules? Do we push against the standards and the commandments and try to go as far as we can and maybe just cross the line just a little bit in some of those gray areas? And we kind of just lick the grass of disobedience. We lick the grass of compromising our standards. Maybe some examples of this. Do we sometimes push the boundaries of what's appropriate in the music that we listen to, or the movies that we watch, or things that we look at online? Do we push the boundaries of modesty? Do we, with dating, do we date before we're 16? Maybe even if it's just a little bit before we're 16. Or do we do what the stripling warriors did? And there's a phrase that I really love about the stripling warriors. And you know the story of the 2,000 stripling warriors, right? If I had to summarize it in just one sentence, it would be 2,000 young men fought battles against Lamanites, and none of them died. Now, if I were to compare that to the youth of today, I might have to say it like this. I would say that the youth of the church fight spiritual battles against Satan and temptation and the world, but some of them do die spiritually. And perhaps it's because they don't do what the stripling warriors did. See, the reason they got that result is because of what they did. And there are so many great lessons that they teach us. They chose a prophet as their leader. They made and kept covenants. They were true at all times. They had great faith. They honored their mothers and their fathers. One of the best lines, though, that I think that describes the stripling warriors, it says that they obeyed every word of command with exactness. Whatever Helaman asked them to do, whatever the prophet asked them to do, they did it with exactness, right to the letter of the law. And that's something that I would encourage you as your bishop to try and do as much as is possible. Don't lick the grass. Don't push the boundaries. Try to follow those commandments. Try to follow those standards with exactness. Even if you wonder about them a little bit, even if you're not totally sure why. Sometimes we got to just put our trust in the Lord and put our trust in the prophets. And when we do that, we'll be safe. We will be protected. Right? And see those fences as guardrails rather than prison walls. It reminds me of a story. There's a great story from church history about a man named Ephraim Hanks. And he lived at the time of Brigham Young. And back then, all of the men, of course, had big beards. And he was kind of a mountain man. So his beard was almost kind of a symbol of his manliness. Kind of like a Brother Pearson beard or a Brother Reed beard. Just magnificent, full, giant beard. And so Ephraim, he goes to a dance. And Brigham Young is there at the dance too. And he walks over to Ephraim and he says, "Ephraim, go home and shave." And then he turned around and walked away back to the dance. And Ephraim was just standing there thinking, why on earth would he ask me to do that? Shave? He's got a beard. Why should I shave? But his prophet asked him to do something. And that was the kind of man that Ephraim Hanks was. He was going to be obedient to the prophet, no matter what it was, even if he didn't understand why. And so Ephraim went home and he shaved. He shaved off this big beard. But he left his mustache, right? He had to hold on to some semblance of his manhood. And of course, since he'd had a beard for so long, he said he looked like a peeled onion, right? He kind of had a beard tan, where this part of his face was tan and this was all white. And he said he just looked ridiculous. But he came back to the party. And from across the room, his eyes met with Brigham's. And Brigham he didn't come over. He didn't say anything to him. He just motioned, and he just went like this. Like, all of it, right? There's still got a mustache. And you think most people in that situation would say, well, the nerve of this guy, right? What right does he have to tell me what to do? But Ephraim was humble. And he went home, and he shaved his mustache off. And then he came back. And now when he walked through the door, Brigham came running over to him and embraced him. And he said, Ephraim, now I know that you will do whatever you're asked. I know that you're the kind of man that I can trust with anything. And the trust of a prophet, boy, that's a huge thing. And so when the Martin and Willie Handcart companies were freezing in the snow in Wyoming, and Brigham Young needed a man to lead a rescue party to go and help those poor saints out on the plains, guess who he asked to do it? It was Ephraim Hanks. So the stripling warriors, Ephraim Hanks, great examples of people who obeyed with exactness. And certainly they were blessed. And I promise you the same blessing. If you will try not to lick grass, right? If you will obey every word with exactness, if you'll shave when you're told to shave, right? Then you'll win your battles, right? That attitude, that willingness to obey our Heavenly Father's commandments will always do you good. Well, that's all. I didn't want to take out too much of your time, but again, just want you to know how much I love you, and hope that you're doing well. Stay healthy, stay safe, choose the right. There's a lot of things that you can do during this time. I'd encourage you to continue to work on your goals that you've made for the youth program. You could still do temple work, even though you can't go to the temple. You could do indexing. You could do family history work. You could spend more time with your brothers and sisters and your parents and forging stronger relationships. There's a lot of good things that we could do with this extra time, and I encourage you to do those. Well, have a wonderful experience with your families during this time, and we'll look forward to seeing you again. All right, thank you. Bye.